So, Philip, it's good afternoon here. I don't know, it's probably good morning where you are. Two things. I'm sorry that you are not here in Dilijan with us.
I'm so sorry also.
But I hope very much that next year when we'll have the next Armenian Summit of Minds, together with Starmuz, the Music and Science Festival, I am looking forward to see you, and together with Thierry and all our friends and colleagues in Armenia. So welcome to Armenia virtually. And I'm so happy that we're having these discussions. And I think here I have to represent the audience or our colleagues who are coming to Summit of Minds to ask you a couple of questions, to ask you to share with your experience in business and life. You are indeed a prominent leader, and you lived in different times, probably two different planets. The one was the planet that was on Earth some 35 years ago. And you were one of the leading people working with huge names and leading them like Club Med, Disney, AOL, you name it. And then somehow the world has changed. But Philip stayed as a leader, but leader also not in his classical appearance, which was the big companies that I have mentioned, but you went into something which is called, with an interesting name. It's about revolution, somehow. I don't know, is that because you are French, or revolution is too important for you? But definitely this is something different in the sense that you are encouraging people who are going to do revolutions, coming up with great and interesting ideas, and there should be revolutionary and brave people like you to support them. So could you please share with us about your first life, which was the classical, and how you went into the new life, revolutionary life, which I call also a quantum life of Philip. Please, Philip.
Okay, I'm going to try to. So after I did a master in economics, I decided to find a job allowing me to travel, because I believe that travel and meeting other people, other nationalities in other parts of the world makes you think more broadly and opens your mind. So my only goal was to travel. And fortunately, I met two people who created Accor, the hotel company. At the time, it was very small. At the end of 73, when I joined, there were like 8 motels, I would say. And they put me in charge of the Middle East. So I really traveled extensively in those years in all of the countries of the Middle East, from Egypt to Afghanistan, from Syria to the Gulf, from Saudi Arabia, and so on. And really, it was a phenomenal experience for me. I learned, I was more like a developer trying to find new places, but slowly but surely learned how, what the hotel business was. And I became, as you say, a very classical, conventional hotel guy, even though I didn't do a hotel school or anything. I ended up doing it in North America for a period of time, based in New York. And then I was in charge of Asia Pacific. So that's my very first life. And fortunately, I did it with amazing people. People are very fundamental, because those two founders of Accor taught me everything. And if I did what I did after, I owe it to them and what they taught me in terms of values, how to behave, who you are, and creating a company with a culture or whatever. So again, conventional, but with leaders with a future view on things, and then I joined Disney, very creative. I learned how to plan and plan and lay out a theme park with a number of hotels around, and then how to manage it, open it, manage it, and so on, which was an amazing experience. And it led me naturally to Club Med, you mentioned, which also was very interesting. So to make a long story short, the rupture for me was September 11. Because September 11 was already a big shock. You always talk about quantum physics, but it was quantum. We lost almost all of our business overnight. In 24 hours, we had huge problems and difficulties and so on. And all the plans we had for Club Med in the future were put on the shelf. It led to some level of crisis. And that's how I finished my, I would call it conventional life, because some friends of mine and myself decided that this life was over and that I had to do something entirely different. This is when I was proposed to run Davos, where I met Thierry and a number of other people who I really appreciate. And for me, it was like, relearning, going back to university, refreshing, and so on, and turning the page with the life before, this life which I really enjoyed, but it was done. And that's when I met a person called Steve Case, who is the founder of AOL. And he basically offered me to join them at Revolution, which he was starting with a few partners. And he offered me to become a partner with them and revolutionize the world. By the way, we were very surprised that we could register under the brand Revolution. We felt that somebody would own Revolution. No, nobody did. So this was obviously, for me, it was spectacular because whatever I've learned over my previous 30 years, I had to forget it. The logic, how you run a hotel, how you develop a hotel, how you travel, how you take vacations and so on, everything was gone. And I was talking to people 2 generations younger than me, and I did not even understand at the beginning their language. So when you have a shakeup like this, it makes you younger. That's what I really liked. And dealing with those people who felt they had a mission, use the web to transform people's life, but in a positive way.
Yes.
In a positive way.
Well, it's interesting. Philip, it's interesting because you spoke about starting a new life with a person whose name is very well known worldwide, Steve Case. And he's the founder of AOL. But the initial company that he had was called Quantum Computer Services. Did you know that?
Yes, exactly.
That means you went into somehow into new quantum life meeting Steve Case. So
yes.
I was not accidentally saying that you had 2 lives, one conventional, the other one quantum, because you met a quantum guy and you started your quantum life.
Exactly. And the beauty working with Steve and those people is that they do not look at trends. When a trend exists, it's already too late. The idea is more to create trends. The idea is what is people behavior. So Steve Case, for instance, when he created AOL, he had a lot of ideas behind AOL, but the real idea behind AOL is that once people would have a PC at home, which was not the case, remember, in 95, not so many people had a PC at home. Once they had a PC at home, and if they had a PC at home, it would open them the world. So he worked on what happens then. He followed Intel and the chips they were doing, which allowed PCs to exist. But he anticipated what would happen once the Intel chip was in the PC. I don't know if I explained it well. And that's what we're doing. We meet every 6 to 8 weeks to do a brainstorm. And each of us, we are six around Steve. Each of us says, well, I think, for instance, people's behavior is changing. Younger people, younger generation, they don't want to own things. They don't want to own things. So if they don't own things, how can we provide either the good or the service to them, which they don't want to own? Like car. That's how we created car sharing with Zipcar. Like also the new notion of subscription. You know, people subscribe to everything, including food services. So the idea that a restaurant today can deliver food at home is already gone. The future is subscription. You subscribe and you get food every day.
Do you agree, Philip, that eventually COVID was just an accelerator of what was happening? It was not the cause of the change. It was just an accelerator, or the proof that the change has already happened.
So an example, we've been looking at health and wellness for the last 10 years.
Yes.
And we anticipated the fact that a time would come where you could do a visit to the doctor teleconferencing. Obviously, you cannot do everything in front of a screen, okay? So we invested in a company called Talkspace, which treats burnout, nervous breakdown, and whatever online. And the beauty of it is that you have 2,000 psychologists, doctors, whatever, and they can share their experience on a daily basis. So when they have a new case, somebody has seen this case before. And so obviously they are not meeting the person in person, but they can really help the person. And clearly, as you say, the COVID crisis has increased the number of mental illness across the world and so on. And health and wellness at home will be more and more significant.
Yes, exactly. And if you look from today, the next 25 years, let's say, where do you think that will be interesting to invest? Or where there will be interesting for young generation to look, create their startups or come up with their ideas?
So we talked about health and wellness clearly for a number of reasons. That's a space which is going to be extremely active. And there is a lot of room for development, new jobs, and new creation. The future of food, what we call farm to store market or farm to restaurant market, which is growing fast, by the way, including those new spaces in cities where you can have. So that's a space. The future of food is changing rapidly. Yes. And turning away from those intensive farms or stables or everything else. Convergence. Some people have been talking about convergence like 15 years ago, but they were unfortunately a little too early. But convergence is happening and has happened basically. So whatever is new content, and new content used to be the ownership or the, let's say, owned by the studios and the television networks. It's over. Today, anybody can produce something on a show and whatever, we see it. And by the way, players like Amazon or Netflix, who are just distributors, are now content providers. But the beauty is that young people, my grandchildren or my children, can tomorrow produce something with a fair chance that it's going to air somewhere soon. Climate tech, obviously. Everybody talks about global warming, that's one thing, but you have also climate change. And climate change is not all linked to global warming. So climate tech is a big thing for the future. And you can see initiatives already here or there, and there are so many things with it. Obviously, the rise of e-commerce. E-commerce is not over by far, and there will be new forms. And the new form, which, by the way, we invested in now 4 years ago, is secondhand. There is this huge trend to preserve the planet, by the way, not to trash everything and so on, to reusing stuff. And so many e-commerce sites are being created now, but it's just the beginning of a new phenomenon. Smarter homes, we've been talking about these forever. Same thing. There are a lot of initiatives, a lot of new technologies and so on, allowing also, by the way, to preserve energy and do a number of things. And what we strongly believe is a trend which will be created is that, and I think, Mr. President, that's why I really appreciate you and what you're doing. And I think Armenia is well located and well equipped because of all the scientists you have and so on to do it. It's what we call rise of the rest. Rise of the rest is just starting. It's not even a trend. It's the fact that new disruptive companies do not have to be from the Silicon Valley, from New York or Boston. They can be from anywhere on the planet, including a small city. You have smart people who have an entrepreneurial spirit. You have scientists almost everywhere. They can be, and so you have new places which can establish themselves as a new place. That's the rise of the rest.
So what about, isn't it difficult, for example, if you are somewhere, even in Armenia or Georgia or somewhere in Siberia, where you are a talented young person, you have ideas, you start a startup, but you don't live in Silicon Valley, you don't live in New York, you are not in Moscow or elsewhere, so there are not huge industries around, so you cannot go to them and try to sell your idea or create a bigger market. If you are in a remote place, how do you push your idea to be successful? Let me make it even simpler. If you were 16 today, and your name was Filip Burginian, Armenian, based in Yerevan, and you had your family members, your uncle's side living in Moscow, your auntie's side living in California. And you had some bright ideas. How you would act, Filip Burginian?
So I will reverse your question after, but obviously I would call whoever I know to, that's what people do when they have an idea, to promote my idea and seek for help. And help is not only financing, help is also network. Help is connecting me with somebody who can help me, let's say, technically, or can help me financially, or can help me landing me an office, or can, it's all those ways. But, Mr. President, it also comes to political leadership and what I call collaboration. What I have seen is that the places which are successful in doing it are the places where either the mayor of the city or let's say the governor of a region in the United States or the prefect in France of a region or whatever, meet with academics, the leader of the local university, meet with the local the local small average size businesses, and they decide to collaborate to create a hub for creation. I will tell you a story on this one, which I witnessed myself. I knew San Diego in California. I've been knowing it for a very long time. And one day I went back to San Diego, and this is about 10 years ago, and I found an entirely transformed city. Why transformed? Because it became the world capital of gem cells.
Yes.
Okay. Why did it become this? Because a young guy, an entrepreneur, as you mentioned, went there and said, I'm going to do a little startup. San Diego is a nice place, whatever. He went to see the dean of the university and he says, can you lend me some of your students to help me start my business? And the guy did. Then he went to the mayor of San Diego. And the mayor of San Diego was very smart. He organized a dinner with 5 bank managers. Okay? And they helped this guy. And then they said, well, but that's very interesting. So they created a collaboration group who met like once every 6 weeks. And the university decided to devote part of the land they had to those initiatives. And entrepreneurs help those guys connect with medical entities, with Medicare organizations, and so on and so forth. And San Diego became the world capital of themselves that way, collaboration. And collaboration needs to have somebody who takes the initiative. You are very well placed to do that in Armenia.
Well, thank you very much. I think that's very encouraging, Philip. Encouraging because indeed, I do also believe that the time of small but global nations like Armenia, like other nations that there are many of them, if we play our advantage or our strength properly or rightly, and as you mentioned, I think the one thing that you do, you call everybody. That means that if you are small but you are well networked, or you have relatives, friends worldwide, because you belong to Armenians, and Armenia is a small state. There are 4 or 5 times more Armenians living abroad, and you can find Armenians in everywhere, every university, every state. So if you are well connected, then you have a better chance if you are talented. And for that, the talent is not enough. You have to be hardworking, but also quite well educated, be that at school, at university, or even self-educated, but there must be a specific environment for that. So from what you are saying, that encourages me that my country in the next century has a chance to support young talent, and by supporting young talent, to support the state and the nation itself to be successful. Am I right?
Absolutely right. And by the way, and I'm serious when I say that, I'm not Armenian, but I have a lot of friends who are Armenians originally. If there is any way, Mr. President, I can help you doing that, I will.
Well, thank you very much, Philip. As always, it's nice to see you because you are not only a great leader, be that classical or quantum, but you are also a very young person, and it doesn't matter how old you are. You can speak about your grandchildren, but you are very young by spirit, by energy, and by positive look of yours to the future and the world. And I thank you for that, and I wish you health, and I wish you that we will have another meeting in Armenia soon.
No, definitely. I will come and visit, in fact, before the next meeting.
Excellent. Okay, Philip, thank you very much, and see you soon.
You're welcome. I'm so happy we could do it.
Thank you very much.